Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Living Manna. Hi, guys. I'm Dave Sain, Senior Shepherd here at Living Manna. It's Wednesday night. You know what that means. It is time for Bible study. Hope that you guys are having a good week. It's moving by very, very quickly. It's already Wednesday. The week is almost over. We're at the midpoint. It's a very, very intense time, especially for our nation right now. As you guys know, the election is literally right around the corner. Just a few more days away. Early voting has started. So hopefully you have either already voted or mailed in your vote or you plan to vote very, very soon. This is a really, really big one. Everybody's vote counts. So make sure you get out there and you do your due diligence, cast your vote, and let your voice be heard. There's already all sorts of shenanigans going on with that, between burning ballot boxes and stuffing ballots and all sorts of crazy things are going on. So this is going to be a really, really crazy one. We're going to talk more about this on Friday night with Brother Max. But just, go out there, guys, do what you have to do as a citizen of our nation. But I am so glad that you are here hanging out with me tonight. Of course, like I said, it's Wednesday night. It's Bible study. We didn't have it last week. We had technical difficulties last week, but here we are today. We're on. We're going to be not so much starting something new. It's really, I guess, an addendum to all the stuff we've been talking about. We're going to get into some more stuff related to the wedding feast of the Lamb, a little bit different aspect of it. But before we do that, let me just remind everybody, if you are here for the first time hanging out with us and you are not subscribed, subscribe, hit the like button, hit the bell so you're notified each time that we go live. Be part of LMC, learn about all the things that we're doing. If you enjoy the content, of course, give us a thumbs up. You can go to the Google Play Store or your App Store. You can download the app if you'd like. You can be in touch with all the different things that we're doing. Got a lot of stuff coming up. We just went through all the feast days, right? The feast days are finally behind us, and now we're in this time where there's really not a whole lot going on until the springtime rolls back around. We're going to use that time to get into some different topics and talk about some different different things. And of course, we're going to revisit the calendar and all that kind of stuff. But a whole lot of stuff the whole holiday season just went by us, and we had a great time at Myrna's and Moro's. Thank you guys so much for all the food and the fellowship and opening up your home. It was a great, great blessing. Don't forget, guys, this week our service is 15 minutes earlier. So we're going to be starting at 10:30, not 10:45, 10:30 a.m. We will be starting, so we'll be ending just a little bit earlier as well. Have a chance to speak at a rally this upcoming weekend. So I've been invited to come and do the opening prayer for that. So I'd like to do that for our community. So we're going to start just a little bit early. And if it works out, if it's something that everybody kind of likes, we might even keep it at 10:30 in the future. We'll see about that. We'll let all you guys know that through the app, or we'll let everybody know on Saturday. But we do have Saturday services this week at 10:30. So don't forget that. Mark that on your calendars. We'll send out a notification to everybody as well. I think those are all the commercials. Let's jump into this by, first of all, opening up with a word of prayer. Abba Yah, we love you. We thank you. Give us eyes to see, ears to hear, and hearts that are willing to obey. In the Master's name, amen. Okay, so tonight, the topic and the title of the message for tonight is Outer Darkness, Furnace of Fire. Outer Darkness, Furnace of Fire. Now, this is actually attached to some of the stuff that we've been talking about. There's definitely a little bit of overlap with, the stuff we've been talking about, from trumpets to atonement to the Sukkot or tabernacles. Excuse me. Of course, trumpets being the call, the shout, the resurrection, at least of the dead. Sometime after that, when, whatever day or hour, we do not know, but the Messiah will come for those who are alive and remain. The sign of the Son of Man will appear. The whole world will see that. The wise virgins will be caught up to be with him. The door will be closed, and the foolish virgins will stay. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today, what that means, what is that aspect, what is that time frame called, or what is that time frame like? We'll cover some of that today. But of course, the whole idea is to make it to the Day of Atonement, which is the wedding feast of the Lamb and his bride. His bride has made herself ready. And then ultimately to get to the actual wedding feast, which is the celebration of Sukkot or tabernacles. That is the memorial, the prophetic memorial of the coming wedding feast of the Lamb, of which we should all want to be part. Now, not everybody's going to be part of the wedding feast of the Lamb, for many are called, but few are chosen. Few will have their gowns on. Few will have their oil prepared. Few will make it. And many who are last will actually wind up being first. That's another thing we can talk about at another time, what that means and its relationship to this whole story. Because that's one of those things you hear and you're like, what does that mean? Who's be first? Will be last. Last will be first. But not for tonight. We'll talk about that another time. But I do want to talk about outer darkness and the furnace of fire. What do those things mean, and what is their relationship with the feast days? They do have a relationship. There's so many different aspects to this. It's impossible to go over all of this, all the information about the feast days and all the different things in just, a couple of weeks. It takes a lot of time. So we're still kind of in that mode. But here it is. Our opening verse for today comes out of Luke chapter 13. Now, this should sound familiar because we've read this in other places, but I wanted to go to Luke to get this today, just because it highlights some things that I want us to really pop out at us. So here's Luke chapter 13. We're around verse 23, and let me make this a little bit bigger so you guys can see it. If you're just coming online, give us a shout out. Let us know where you're watching from. Give us a good evening, a Erev Tov, a hello, a shalom. Let us know where you're watching from. We'd appreciate that. Okay, so here's Luke chapter 13 and verse 23. And it says the following. It says, "And he was going through the cities and villages, teaching and journeying toward Jerusalem. And someone said to him, 'Master, are there few who are being saved?'" Now, really important question. I mean, this is really, really a good question, because when you listen to all the stuff he says before that, and of course all the stuff he says after that, he says multiple times, many are called, few were chosen. So they're asking that question. Are you talking about, like a small, are there actually going to be few who are actually going to make it to this thing? And so here's his answer. This is really important. And he said to them, strive to enter through the narrow gate, because many, I say to you, shall seek to enter in and shall not be able. So just stop right there for a second. What's the answer to this person's question? Because they just asked, and just going to highlight it under here, they just asked, are there only few that are going to be, I mean, few over, the last 2 millennium, and obviously people even before that is probably a big number, but in relationship to all the people there have been, what kind of number is that? Well, it's probably a small number. As a matter of fact, he tells us. So they ask, are there few that are going to be saved? And of course, his answer is, because many are going to seek to enter through the narrow gate, but they will not be able. That's really sobering. Of course, this is going to connect us in just a second to the parable of the 5 wise virgins and the 5 foolish, which we've talked about over the last couple of weeks. So this should be fresh in your mind. You can go back and check out some of the previous studies. It should be fresh in your mind. You can go to Matthew 25 if you want to read the whole thing. That 5 make it, 5 don't. 5 enter into the bridal chamber, 5 enter into the wedding feast, 5 do not. 5 are on the outside, banging and are crying out, Master, Master, depart from me, I don't know you. And you're going to hear those same words here. So even though he's not necessarily, this isn't, the same parable, so to speak, as the 5 wise and 5 foolish virgins, you can see that he's actually referring to that. So he says this first, and then later on in Matthew 25, he'll give us the parable of the virgins. But you're going to notice similarities here. So he says, many are going to seek to enter in through the narrow gate, but many are not going to make it. It's going to be few. So the answer to the question basically simply is yes, few. Verse 25, and this is important. When once the master of the house has risen up, and by risen up, it doesn't mean resurrection. It's not talking about him, rising on the 3rd day. Though you could read that and maybe come away with that understanding if you don't understand the total context. He doesn't mean risen up as in risen from the dead. He means risen up as is coming, is making himself known, as is showing himself. He's talking about the second coming. He's not right now where he is, but he's talking about, just like in the parable of the 10 virgins, the husband is coming. The shout, the teruah is given. We know he's coming. We're not sure exactly what moment he's going to arrive. 5 go out to get oil. 5 have oil. 5 make it. 5 don't. So that's what it means here when he says, when once the master of the house has risen up, returned, and shut the door. So this is a direct has direct relationship to the parable of the virgins, because that's exactly what it says. 5 wise, 5 foolish, 5 go in, the door gets shut. And of course, the door is shut, and then he says, and you begin to stand outside. Now, by outside, if we're thinking about this, it's a parable. Even the 5 wise, 5 foolish is a parable. But what it's talking about is the coming of the master, or whatever day it is after the shout of the teruah and before the day of atonement, whatever day and hour this is that he comes. The ones who are prepared enter in, the door is shut. And then the many. Now we're talking about people who are alive, right? Because this does not apply to every single person that's lived, because he's talking about the people who will see the master rise up. He's talking about the 5 foolish and the 5 wise who hear the shout. So whatever group of people it is, if it happens in our lifetime, fine, wonderful. If it doesn't happen in our lifetime, if it happens in our children's lifetime, or if it doesn't happen for another 100 years, he's talking about those that will be there at that moment when it happens. There will be those who, after the door is shut, the 5 wise are taken in, and you, really the 5 foolish, and you begin to stand outside and knock at the door, saying, Master, Master, open up for us. Now we can connect this to, the parable of the 10 virgins. You can connect this all the way to Matthew chapter 7. Many shall say to me in that day, Master, Master. He's talking about the same thing. He's talked about it multiple times, a little bit differently each time, but it's always about the same events. So they say, just like in Matthew 7, Master, Master, open up for us. And he shall answer and say to you, I do not know you, or where you are from. Then you shall say to him, and of course, these are people who believe in him. These are 5 foolish virgins, but they're still believers. They still were expecting the shout of the master. And we talked about this, I think, I think it was on our tabernacles or maybe our Yom Kippur service. We talked about the 2 groups, 2 different resurrections, and what each one means. One is the bride, one of those who will become the priest. The others are not. It doesn't mean they're not going to. If their name's written in the Lamb's Book of Life, that's fine. That's wonderful. But this is entering the narrow gate. Many will seek to enter it. Not everybody does. I don't know you, where you are from. Verse 26, and I'm right down here, guys, so you can follow along. It says, then you shall begin to say, we ate and we drank in your presence, and you taught in our streets. But he shall say, I say to you, I do not know you, where you are from. Depart from me, all you workers of unrighteousness. And of course, that's lawlessness in other versions. And of course, what that literally means are those who do not keep the commandments, who do not obey his instruction, Father's instruction, his instruction, which is the explanation of Father's instruction. You just don't obey. Depart from me, all you workers of unrighteousness. And here it is. So this is at the coming of the master. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. When? At the coming of the master, sometime after the shout, at the time that those who are alive and remain are taken up, and those who thought that they were part of the bride are the ones weeping and mourning and crying out, and now gnashing their teeth because the door has been shut on them. Then he says, there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth when you see Abraham and Yitzhak and Yaakov and all the prophets in the kingdom of Elohim at the wedding feast of the Lamb, and you yourselves thrown outside. All right, so there's a whole bunch of moving parts here, but I think the thing that I really want you to sort of wrap around your mind for tonight is that this is talking about, when it refers to the term weeping and gnashing of teeth, that it's referring to what happens at the coming of the master. Now, this is important for a whole bunch of reasons, because the question we got to ask, because I'm going to show you a whole bunch of different verses in a second. If they're being tossed out into outer darkness, is that the same thing as the furnace of fire? Because we're going to read some of the same language used for furnace of fire as is used for outer darkness. So the question is, or what I want us to kind of delve into for tonight, is that the same thing? Is outer darkness the furnace of fire? Is the furnace fire are they 2 separate things? Well, here's a couple of verses that I want us to look at for tonight. Now, these are some of the verses where this is mentioned, and of course I color coded it so that you can see it on your screens there. Here's Matthew chapter 13 and verse 42. It says, "And the Son of Adam shall send out his messengers, and they shall gather out of his reign all the stumbling blocks and those doing lawlessness, and shall throw them into the furnace of fire, and there shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth." So this is the parable, the 7 parables of the kingdom, Matthew chapter 13. He is talking about, if you go back and you take the time to read through it, he's talking about when he returns at the end of the age, when the master is coming, just like he says in Matthew, he's going to send out his angels first. And there's going to be a division made between the righteous and the unrighteous. Obviously, the righteous are going to be taken into the storeroom, but the lawless, they are going to be thrown into the furnace of fire. Here, the term is furnace of fire. But I want you to notice this is the same term as we just read in Luke. And there shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. So is this the same thing? Or are we talking about, is the furnace of fire he's referring to the same thing as outer darkness? Or is it something different? Is it the same event? Here's Matthew chapter 24 and verse 49. It's talking about the servants, the good servant and the evil servant. The good servant who gives bread in due season. He's doing the things his master wants him to do because his master has gone away. And the evil servant who knows his master has gone away, who knows his master is coming, but begins to eat and drink with the drunkards and, just lives like everybody else and doesn't know the day when the master is coming. This also, just like Matthew chapter 13, is about the coming, or what we would say, the second coming. Because when you read the parable, it says the master went away, so he's come, he's left, and he left all his goods to his servants. And the servant of the household is either a good servant or the servant of the household is a bad servant. Put it this way, the servant of the household is either a wise servant, wise virgins, or the servant of the house are foolish virgins or foolish servants. And so it says here, and this foolish servant or the unwise servant begins to beat his fellow servants and to eat and drink with the drunkards. The master of that servant shall come. So he's already come. He's already left and left them their goods. This is his return. Just like we just read in Matthew 13, it is the return. The master sends his angels out. It is the return that leads to the furnace of fire and the wailing and gnashing of teeth. Here is the return. And the master of that servant shall come, shall return on a day when he does not expect it and at an hour when he does not know. We looked at that in Enoch. We looked at that in Matthew. We looked at it in a couple of different places. Nobody knows the day that this event is going to occur on. We may know the shout, but we don't know when the actual coming is. On a day when he does not expect it, and at an hour when he does not know. And he, the wicked servant, he shall cut him in two, or really cut him off, and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. Those are people that don't believe, that are just hypocritical about it. So this person believes he's doing bad things, but this person believes. But he doesn't go with the good servant. He doesn't go with the obedient servant. The obedient servant is ready when the master comes. When he finds him so doing, he's going to bless him and give him all sorts of things. But the one who's not ready, he says he will be cut off and given his portion with the hypocrites. And here it is, same terminology. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth, same as up here, and thrown into the furnace, and there shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. So are these different events? Is being appointed a portion with the hypocrites the same as being thrown into the furnace of fire? Or is it something different? Well, hopefully you're starting to get the pattern here. These are all connected. These are actually all little different mini pictures of the same event. And how do we know? Because the language is the same in all of them. It is about his coming. And it's what happens at his coming. There are those who are the few that are ready. There are the many who are not. There are the good servants who are ready. There are the evil servants who are not. There are the wise virgins who are ready. There are the foolish virgins who are not. And the door is shut, and not everyone makes it in to the wedding feast of the Lamb. Here's Matthew chapter 22 and verse 13. It says, then the king, so this is the same sort of analogy, but this is the wedding feast. We talked about this, I don't know, 3-4 dozen times already. This is the wedding feast. The kingdom of Elohim is like a king who wants a wedding for his son, right? The whole gospel story. You get down to the end of the story, and it says he goes to the actual wedding, and somebody got in there who it's not dressed right. Now, not that could happen, but this is a parable. It's a story. It says, the sovereign said to the servants, to the guy who's not dressed right, bind him hand and foot and take him away And here it is. And throw him into outer darkness. The person that's not supposed to be at the wedding feast. The person to whom the door should have been shut. The person who is the foolish one. The person who is the evil servant. So here it is. Throw them into the furnace. Here it is. Cut him in two and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. Here it is. Throw him into outer darkness. But here's the thing that connects them all. Whether it's outer darkness, whether it is cutting him in two or cutting him off and appointing his portion with the hypocrites, here's what connects them all. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. These are all pictures of the same event, and they are all surrounding the coming or the return of the Son, getting people to the wedding feast. Here is Matthew chapter 25 and verse 30. Now, of course, I didn't want to, we're not reading through all of this, but this is the parable. This is the parable of the talents, right? All the different talents are given. As a matter of fact, it opens up with the master is going away on a long journey. He's there. He's going to leave. So he's already come, and he gives out a certain amount of talents to each one of the servants, and they are supposed to earn interest on what the master is given. Then it tells us when the master returns. So what's the parable about? The return. Just like the 5 foolish and 5 wise, the return. Just like Matthew 13, when the Son of Man sends his angels, the return. Just like the foolish servant and the evil servant and the good servant, when the master returns. This is about his return. This is when this is happening. And of course, there's the one who has the one talent who does nothing with it. And he takes the one and he gives it to those that have many. And he says to the worthless servant, he goes out into outer darkness. So now we have outer darkness. Let me get rid of some of these. Use a different color here. We've got outer darkness. We've got outer darkness. We've got appoint him into his portion with the hypocrites. And we've got throw him into a fiery furnace. And what connects them all? There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Throw him into outer darkness, and there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Now, you could read this and think these are all different, events, but they are actually all the same event. All different descriptions of the same event. Each one giving us just, a little bit of a different slant on it, but it's still the same event. This is important for us to understand. Are we talking about fire or darkness or cutting off and throwing with the hypocrites? Which one is it? Well, in all honesty, it's all of them. Now, is he talking about the lake of fire here? Is that what this is a reference to? Because that's very often I've heard it sort of taught in this way, that what he's talking about is those that are being thrown into the lake of fire, where there will be wailing and gnashing of teeth. I don't think that's what he's talking about. In fact, I'm like 99.9999999% positive that's not what he's talking about. He's not talking about the white throne judgment. He's not talking about after the millennial kingdom. He's talking about when the master returns, when the merchant returns, when the husband returns, when you see the Son of Man and he is returning and sends his angels. So could it be lake of fire? Well, here's Revelation 20, verse 14, which speaks about the lake of fire, because you hear fire and you automatically sort of make that connection. But here's, just verse 14. I want to, again, go through all of them. You could read the scripture yourself, but it says, and death and hell, death in the grave, right? Sheol's where the dead were thrown into the lake of fire. So Revelation 20 is telling us at the second resurrection, people get raised and they're going to get judged by their works. They're going to get judged by their works and whether their name is in the Lamb's Book of Life. If their name's in the Lamb's Book of Life, they'll be judged by their works to receive reward or have reward taken away. And they will have their place in the kingdom. It will not be the same place as those who were raised 1,000 years earlier and are the bride, that made it to the wedding feast of the Lamb, that made it as kings and priests, two different sets of people. We're going to get into that in just a couple of weeks as we talk about the Torah being fulfilled. We'll get into that in a better description in the next couple of weeks. So this is a totally different group of people being resurrected and judged really on a different basis on their works if their name is written in the Lamb's Book of Life. And so death itself, the grave, gives up their dead. They are judged. And those who are not in the Lamb's Book of Life are thrown into the lake of fire. This is the second death. And if anyone was not found written in the book of life, which means because you got as you read this, you got to realize, okay, if they're not found in the book of life, this is going to happen to them. But if they are found in the book of life, this is not going to happen to them. They're going to live. They're not going to be the same as the people in Jerusalem as the priest, but they're going to live. They will be eternal. Again, we'll get into this another time. And anyone's name not found written in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire. All right, so we've got a judgment going on. We've got people being thrown into the lake of fire. But what do we not have here? What do you not see here in the final description of the final death, of the final judgment? You don't get, as described here in Revelation 20, you don't get weeping and gnashing of teeth. It's just not. Now you would think, okay, maybe that does happen, but it's not mentioned. It's not mentioned like it is mentioned. I'm sorry, I went a bit too far. I went way too far. Here we go, guys. It's not mentioned like it's mentioned here. Wailing and gnashing of teeth. Wailing and gnashing of teeth. Outer darkness. Wailing and gnashing of teeth. Outer darkness. Wailing and gnashing of teeth. Into the fiery furnace. Wailing and gnashing of teeth. These are not the same events. We're not referring to the same events. Yes, this is definitely about fire, right? It's the lake of fire. But there's no wailing, there's no gnashing of teeth. It's not connected to, because this is not the picture of the second coming. The wailing and gnashing of teeth is connected to the second coming. To those who believe that they would be part of the bride, but don't make it. To the many who are called, but the few who are chosen. Here's Matthew chapter 24. Excuse me. Matthew chapter 24, because it's always about the coming. That's one of the key concepts. The servant that beats the wicked servant who beats the servants. It says, and when the master of that servant shall come. This here is not about the coming of the master. Master's already come. King's already been here. This is white throne judgment. This is way, way, way beyond that. But the wailing and gnashing of teeth is when the master of that servant shall come. Matthew 25:13, watch therefore, because you do not know the day or the hour in which the Son of Man is coming. This is where it talks about the wailing and gnashing of teeth into the fire. It's when he comes. Matthew 13, verse 41, one of the other verses we read, the Son of Man shall send out his messengers when? At his coming. And they shall gather at his kingdom all the stumbling blocks and those doing lawlessness, and they shall be thrown into the furnace of fire, and there shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. All right. So if they're not the same event, if the lake of fire is not what he's talking about here, then what fire is he referring to? Or what darkness is he referring to? Or what cutting off and having your portion with the hypocrites, what does that refer to? Well, there is an answer to that. It's an important one for us to understand sort of the events as they unfold. It doesn't mean they're not servants. It doesn't mean that that on that day of the white throne judgment, that maybe their names will be in the Lamb's Book of Life, but they will be judged according to their works, according to what they've done or what they haven't done. They were the many, but as the question in the beginning was, are there few? Seek to enter the narrow road. Many try, few actually make it. So, guys, you want to be part of the few. Here is Revelation. Oh, we just read this. I'm sorry. Here is the fire and the darkness. So what are we actually talking about? If we're talking about his coming, we're talking about the second coming, the return. It is also referred to as the day of Yah. Now, I guess in some of our versions, you might say the day of the Lord, but the day of Yah is better, or the day of Elohim is better or more accurate. Here is Isaiah chapter 66 and verse 15, talking about the return of the Messiah, which is the day of Yah. Now, we say day of Yah, and we're thinking Father, but Messiah is the representation of Yah. He has Father's name on him. He is Yahu. He is Yahushua. He does have the Father's name and all the Father's authority. If you've seen him, you've seen the Father. So it says, for look, Yahuwah, Messiah, comes with fire, with his chariots and his horses, like a whirlwind, to render his displeasure, with burning, and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire and by his sword, this is important, by his sword, Yahuwah shall judge all flesh that is alive and remaining at the time that the Son of Man comes, at the time after the shofar is blown, at the time between the division of the wise and the foolish virgins, at the time between the evil servant and the good servant. He shall judge all flesh, and the slain of Yah shall be many. So what's really the fire here? We're talking about judgment. It's a reference to judgment. It's what Messiah will do. So that's why there's weeping and gnashing of teeth, because the living, especially those who thought they should go, who knew him, who would cry out and say, Master, Master, I don't know you. And they're going to be crying and weeping and gnashing of teeth because they should have known, but they didn't. Here's 2 Peter chapter 3 and verse 10, also talking about the day of Yahuwah. It says, but the day of Yahuwah, which is the coming of the Messiah, shall come as a thief in the night. Messiah says that about his own coming, Matthew chapter 24 and 25, in which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements, here it is, shall melt with intense heat, and the earth and all the works that are in it shall be burnt up. Fire. Seeing all these are to be destroyed in this way, what kind of people ought you to be in set-apart behavior, that is, in keeping the commandments, the instruction, in loving the way we're supposed to love, in living the way we're supposed to live, in treating others the way we're supposed to treat others, in speaking the way we're supposed to speak, and sharing the gospel story as we understand it to everyone that will be able to listen. What kind of people ought we to be in set-apart behavior and reverence, looking for and hastening to the coming of the day of Elohim, the second coming of the Messiah, through which the heavens shall be destroyed, being, here it is, set on fire, and the elements melt with intense heat. Whatever it is that Messiah is going to do when he actually returns, it's going to be bad. And for everyone who's here, it's going to be bad. For all flesh that survives this, it's going to be bad. These are what would be called the days of awe, the time of judgment, the great and terrible day of Yah. This is not good. This is not what you want to make. Again, these are the people who are not the bride, who will not be the priest, who will not be kings and rulers. That doesn't mean that they don't make it to the second resurrection. Everybody does that. And there they will be judged. Here's Amos chapter 5 and verse 20. Is not the day of Yah, the coming of Messiah, And look how it describes it now. Darkness and not light. Is it not very dark and no brightness in it? So when we hear references to be thrown out into outer darkness, or be thrown out into the fiery furnace or the burning furnace, and we're thinking, oh, he's got to be talking about maybe two separate events, or maybe he's talking about the lake of fire. No, he's talking about the same event. It's called the Day of Yah. It's called the second return, or the second coming of the Messiah. We see obviously it is fire here. We see obviously it is fire here, but now it is darkness. Very, very dark. Here's Joel chapter 2 and verse 1. It says, blow the shofar in Zion, sound an alarm in my set-apart mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the earth tremble. For the day of Yah, which is exactly what we're looking, the day of Yah is here, the day of Yah is here, the day of Yah is here. For the day of Yah is coming, the coming of the master. The merchant is returning, for it is near. And what does he refer to this day as? Well, here it is. It is a day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and thick darkness. Again, same analogy. So when we hear the master explaining it as fire in one sense, okay, but he's still talking about the same day. If he's explaining it as darkness, okay, but he's still talking about the same day. And he always connects it throughout the Gospels with weeping and gnashing of teeth, or master, master, and of course, I don't know you. A day of clouds of thick darkness, like the morning clouds spread over the mountains. A people many and strong, the like of whom has never been nor shall ever be again after the years of many generations. Ahead of them, a fire has consumed, and behind them, flames burn. So we've got Joel using both references to both darkness and fire. You will be cast out into outer darkness, or you will be cast out into the fire. It's all wrapped around the day of Yah, or the coming of the master. Here is Isaiah chapter 66 and verse 15. It says, for look, Yahuwah, Messiah, comes with fire and with his chariots. Now, we just read this a second ago. I wanted to read it again because I want to connect it to something. Like a whirlwind to render his displeasure with burning, and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire and by his sword he shall judge all the flesh that is living at that moment, foolish virgins and the hypocrites, and the slain of Yah shall be the many. Few, many. Take this verse, and now let's read Revelation 19, and you'll see we're reading about the same event in Revelation 19 as we are reading about in Isaiah chapter 66. It is the coming of the Mashiach. And I saw the heaven open, and there was a white horse, and he who sat on him was called trustworthy and true. And in righteousness he judges and fights. And his eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, having a name that had been written, which no one had perceived except himself, Yahuwah. And having been dressed in a robe dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of Yah, or the Word of Yahuwah. And the armies in the heaven, dressed in fine linen, white and clean, followed him on white horses. And out of his mouth goes a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations. For by fire and by his sword he shall judge all flesh, and the slain of Yah shall be many. These are both speaking about the same events. And he shall shepherd them with a rod of iron. He treads the winepress of the fierceness of the wrath of El Shaddai. So whether it's fire whether it's being cast out into outer darkness, whether it's being tossed out with the hypocrites, there is always weeping and gnashing attached to it to those who should have known, those who had a concept, an idea. They knew the master was coming, whether they're evil servants, foolish servants, they knew. And now they are crying out, Master, Master. But it's too late. It's too late. They will not see the millennial kingdom. They will not see the first resurrection. And they will be weeping and gnashing their teeth because of it. Again, just a little bit sharper definition than we've talked about before. So let's go back to our opening verse where we started this whole thing off with. Luke chapter 13 and verse 23. And this is also recorded, and I didn't really get into the feast of Elohim because we're trying to get to the wedding feast, right? Well, there's a feast that goes on before the wedding feast, and you can pick this up. It's in Revelation 19, the verses right after what we just read. It talks about the birds of the air coming and feasting on the flesh of generals, which you also get in Ezekiel 39. Same description. That's where the wailing and gnashing of teeth comes. That's the judgment that is going to be poured out upon this earth when the Mashiach comes. And very, very few will survive that. So with all of that, getting back to our opening verse, let's go through this and see if we can explain this and highlight this a little bit better. And as he was going through the cities, and villages, teaching and journeying towards Jerusalem, and someone said to him, Master, are there few who are being saved? Well, what's the answer to that? By saved, it means we'll make the wedding feast of the Lamb. Many are going to be called. But how many are going to make the wedding feast of the Lamb? Well, many are called to that. Few are chosen. So what's the answer? Yes. And he said to them, strive to enter through the narrow gate. Because many, I say to you, shall seek to enter in the wedding feast and shall not be able. Beloved, we ought to be striving to enter into the narrow gate. The only way we get there is not just because you understand that Messiah died for you. It's because you are going that extra mile, that extra step to be obedient because he died for you, because you are forgiven. You want to serve, you want to do, you want to love, you want to speak, you want to act, you want to celebrate, you want to memorialize, you want to walk this thing out the way he has instructed us to walk it out. That's the difference between the wise and the foolish. I say to you, shall seek to enter the wedding feast and shall not be able. When once the master of the house has risen, has come, he sent his angels, he has come, he has returned, and he shuts the door on those who have already been taken with him. And you begin outside here on the earth, all over the earth, billions that thought they were part of the bride, that they were going to the wedding feast of the Lamb. But they were foolish virgins, unfaithful servants, disobedient. And they shall knock on the door and say, Master, Master, open up for us. And he shall answer and say to them, I do not know you or where you're from. Then you shall begin to say, we ate and drank in your presence. We did stuff. And you get this in another version too. You get this in Matthew 7. We prophesied in your name. We cast out demons in your name. We did all sorts of stuff in your name. We fed the poor in your name. We had lots of works. Those works will count at the next judgment, but not here. Not here. And you taught in our streets, but he shall say, I say to you, I do not know you or where you are from. Depart from me, you workers of unrighteousness or without Torah. And because of this, because you've been disobedient, it is the disobedient where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth, where there will be the suffering through the fire, where there will be the darkest days that have ever been, where they will be cast out amongst the hypocrites. All of those things are going to happen at the same time. All descriptions of the same event, the day of Yah. Depart from me, you workers of unrighteousness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth when you see those attending, those who have gone, Abraham and Yitzhak and Yaakov and all the prophets in the reign of Elohim, and you yourselves cast outside. Take them, bind them, cast them out. The evil servant will be cast out, torn out, put out with the hypocrites. And you yourselves thrown outside to see the second resurrection. Whether your names are in the Lamb's Book of Life, or then you enter into the lake of fire, which is the second death. They sound similar. I know they do, but they're not. Outer darkness and the furnace of fire, they're the same thing. They are the references of what will happen to those at the day of Yah, the coming of the Master, for those who do not have oil in their lamps, who aren't prepared with their wedding gowns, who have not been obedient to the instruction of the commandments, who think the instruction of the commandments do not apply to us. And because of that, there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. I know, kind of a bummer, but on the bright side, if we know this now, we ought to do everything we can to go through the narrow gate, to not just be the called, but strive to be those who are the chosen. That is Yah's word for you guys for tonight. I hope that you guys enjoyed that. Thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight. I sincerely appreciate it. Don't forget to join us this upcoming Friday at 7:30 for our Hidden Manna. We haven't had that in quite a few weeks. I'm looking forward to it. Brother Max and I will have a conversation. Of course, we're going to be talking about a little bit about the election. It's coming up. It's right around the corner. Crazy stuff is going on in our world already. Guys, prepare yourselves. Be prayed up for this. This is not going to be good no matter what happens. We've got some dark days, to sort of borrow the term, dark days that are ahead of us no matter what happens. So be prayed up. We don't know what tomorrow's going to bring, but do your due diligence. Go out there. Make sure you cast your vote, whether it's early voting or you vote on that day. Make sure you let your voice be heard. It's very, very important that you do that. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your evening. We'll see you. And don't forget, Saturday service is at 10:30, not 10:45, 10:30. I know it's an extra 15 minutes earlier. You got to get up, but it's an extra 15 minutes. You get out a little bit earlier as well. So guys, with that, thank you again so much for hanging out with us. We sincerely appreciate it. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up and a like. Send this out to somebody. Subscribe. Let us know who you are. Download the app. We thank you for your support in all the things that we do. It's only possible because of your support. Guys, have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Yah bless and shalom.